Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday the 13th of March. It's an unlucky day, Friday the 13th. Believe me, I don't know how I've got here, but I am here. I apologise profusely for the delay, for keeping all of you waiting. I'm really sorry about that. But I won't tell you about my troubles. We'll just get started with the webinar. Today we have Vladimir Surčinski, who's the project manager from Quality Austria Center, Serbia. And Vladimir is going to be talking to us today about food safety training, specifically with regard to emergency preparedness and response. Obviously, emergency preparedness and response is very important procedures to have in place, policies and procedures, but it's absolutely useless if you don't roll that out through the organization. So Vladimir is going to be talking to us about that shortly. Okay, so before we get started, just a couple of things. As you know, it's free to attend today, and we are sponsored in this with Food Safety Fridays. We've got Safe Food 360, Trace Analytics, the Foundation for Food Safety Certification, and IFS. So thanks very much for those sponsors that help keep this free for you every week. I don't think I've got anything else to say. We're going to struggle today with, there are no pop-ins for the certificate. I've had to log on with a different account due to technical problems, so all the things we set up for you are not available. But what we can do, we can still deliver the presentation and we can still have the questions and answers later. So I can see Vladimir is here, so I'll just pop over and say hello. How are you doing, Vladimir? Good to see you.
Hello, nice to be here with you today.
You're looking very relaxed, seeing as you've been waiting 20 minutes. Sorry about that, but while you get your presentation ready, Vladimir, I'll just have a little chat about next week's webinar. Okay, mate, I'll see you shortly.
Okay.
Right, ladies and gents, you can't register from within this window for next week's webinar, but I can certainly tell you a little bit about it. We've got Steve Gruler, who's the President and CEO of Global Quality Consultants Inc. Steve was here on one of the earlier webinars this year, and he was talking about supply chain risk management. And this next week, sorry, is going to be talking about integrated crisis management planning. I'll just read it to you. This session outlines the need for comprehensive crisis management planning. It addresses the lack of preparedness consumer products companies are accomplished in rapid crisis response. This session covers the critical elements and the functional benefits of a holistic plan. Attendees will gain insight to the benefits of impactful design, multi-tiered cross-functional teams based on companies' management style, skills and culture, crisis communication planning. That's if something goes wrong, how do you get the message out there to all relevant parties, and addressing all perils and staying current. So it actually carries on the theme of crisis management, emergency preparedness, but with a different slant. So that's good in a way, because we'll already be thinking about those issues. So what I'll do now is, by the way, it is being recorded today. We'll edit out any bloopers, and we will issue the recorded video, the slides and the certificate to all registered attendees. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Vladimir, and I'll be back afterwards for the questions and answers. Okay, cheers. Okay, Vladimir.
Hello again. Thank you all food safety friends for logging into these presentations, and thank you IFSQN for this great opportunity, giving all of us place to share and to learn. And also, of course, thank you, Simon, for every day tackling with all the challenges for all of these great webinars. Okay, today with you is me, Vladimir Surčinski, specialist in sanitary and environmental engineering. I have more than 500 audits performed for Deleuze Serbia as a food safety operations, auditing of food safety in more than 400 retail stores in 3 countries for Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro. And as you presented, I'm a project manager in Quality Austria Center with more than 100 audits as auditor for ISO 9001, 14001, 18001, FSSC 22000, ISO 22000, and HCCP. Also, I'm a trainer for food safety standards with more than 1,000 people trained, and with this webinar, even more. So, Quality Austria was founded as a limited company for training, certification, and evaluation in 2004. It close relationship with the partner organizations, IQNet, AOQ, and AFQM enables the mutual exchange of topical and global know-how. It has 50 partner and member organizations, own offices, and exclusive partners. Quality Austria is also represented on site in Eastern and Southeastern and South Europe, Asia, as well as in South and Central America. Quality Austria Center is a regional partner located in Belgrade, Serbia, and it is responsible also for countries Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Croatia, and Bulgaria. Quality Austria covers the 3 business areas of certification, evaluation, and validation, provides training and individual certification as well as information, expert knowledge, and service. It has more than 1,000 auditors, trainers, and assessors, and technical experts combine know-how specific to standards and sectors with a significant focus on practical issues, and with more than 12,000 clients from all sectors, not just food, but also other sectors. Okay, today we are going to talk about emergency situations that could affect your business and food safety of your organization. Also, we are going to talk about internal and external risks that could contribute to the emergency situation. We will see some data provided by Quality Austria from certified organizations, and after that we will talk about some emergency situations that maybe we did not take into consideration. And after all, we will have to prepare for all that situations with some actions and trainings, and to develop procedures about what to do after one emergency situation. So, in past years we have confronted with some large nature-caused emergencies in the world, like Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Katrina, earthquake in Japan. Last year we had some floods in Serbia, and also tornadoes across the world. For all these situations, what do they have in common, except that they are just disasters, is that food and water in the affected areas may be contaminated with microbiological and chemical hazards. And this is something that we all need to consider in our everyday operations in companies dealing with food. So, food and water may be contaminated, but also what we need to consider is that besides natural disasters, there are also additional risks that could give us emergency situation, or that could get worse the existing disaster. So we separated them into 2 groups, internal and external risks. And when we talk about internal risks, are the ones that are affecting food safety in organization, and we mentioned some of them, like improper storing, inadequate equipment, diseased employees, and of course, I'm sure that you all can think a number of all other risks that could emerge, but let's stick for now on this that we mentioned. For example, improper storing can be additional risk, especially when there is a food that needs cold storage. Also, some more things to consider is FIFO principles and proper shelf life control. So this is in direct connection with fast response and handling with products when emergency starts. When we talk about inadequate equipment for food preparation, for example, some of the organization will be empowered to provide food for people affected in emergency, and food that is prepared for them also needs to be safe. And maybe that organization is also affected with a disaster. So if you have adequate equipment, you will prepare safe food even if there is an emergency. Also, I think that there is no need of mentioning what will happen if we have a food handler or employee that is transferring germs because he is diseased, and we did not perform adequate control of that or preparation if that situation emerged. So this is just few things for internal risks, but I'm sure that you can think a lot of other things, but we are mentioning for now just this one. For example, also second group is external risks, and that are the risks that are not in direct production process, but could additionally affect food safety. They are lack of electricity, inability of thermal preparation or lack of fuel, poor sanitation, especially after disaster, and others like lack of clean drinking water and toilets. This is the risk that could be affecting food safety a lot after a disaster in, let's say, recovery time period. So this is something that we need to consider also before the emergency, but also we have to think what will happen and what will affect in that period after emergency situation. So the main questions of all included in the food chain and affected with disaster are how to protect my inventory, how to continue to work, how to continue to serve safe food, and to keep business after all. And the best way, the best answer is that to address these questions before the emergency situations occurred. Okay. What we have concluded so far, if we look at the data from Fifth Quality Austria Forum represented in Belgrade 2014 for certified organizations for food standards, we might say that when we look at the organization certified according to food safety standards, we have 95% of organizations that have created manuals for emergency situations. Only 5% of these organizations are without manual for emergency situation. As we can look, this is quite well percentage, it's 95%, but when we look some other data for organizations that have created manuals for emergency situation, we can see that 35% of that organization or employees are those who know that there is a manual and are familiar with the content. But 55% are those who know that there is a manual but are not familiar with the content. So there is a lack of knowledge or lack of training, and 14% of those who don't know that there is a manual but they have it even. Okay, so for that organization that have the manual, when we look on trainings on emergency situation, we also have some new data there, and 80% of those who have passed the training with topics concerning emergency. Okay, this seems quite well percentage, but when we look at that organizations, especially in Serbia, there is training with topics concerning emergencies presented and developed because there is a trainings for health and safety risks and for fire drills, and this is something that is obligatory by the law, so organizations are performing that trainings and concerning that emergencies, so that's a high percentage. But if we look to those who have passed the trainings with topics emergencies involving food safety, we are seeing that it is only 13%. And there is even 7% of those who have not gone through the training with topics of emergencies. Okay. When we look at the manuals, we can see that the most common things that are included in manuals are fires, floods, snowstorm, earthquakes, power cuts, especially in companies dealing with cold storing. And some of the organization also included warfare or some other situations that could affect public. All of these things are okay, but in most cases they are described in general, and there is a lack of belief that emergency situation of that kind could happen. So Maybe for some next thing that I'm going to talk about are generally described in manuals, but we also need to include them in possible emergency situations. So what could also be included in our manual? Poisoning caused by food. But when we talk about poisoning caused by food, wait, isn't it that we are talking about organizations with implemented food safety system? But in most common cases, organizations have procedures that covers general information on how to prevent it, but in that procedures it is not explained how they are going to react if a large number of persons is affected. So they're not defining if there is a large number of persons affected, how to deal with non-conforming product, how to deal with recall, who should be noticed, and at the end, how to react on poisoning caused by food in a large number of persons involved. Also, this is something that is especially for smaller and medium enterprises. For bigger enterprises, they have that defined. But small and medium enterprises is something that is most common in this region. Also, only a small number of companies are taking in consideration something called publicly announced complaints. That's we define that as complaints that are coming from news, TVs, maybe Facebook or Twitter, and they are not presented directly to the organization, they are just announced. So there is no need to do something, and maybe organization have some kind of procedure dealing with compliance that are coming over the phone or mail, but it also needs to consider publicly announced complaints. So this is something that needs to be included in also manuals, or maybe some other procedures concerning emergency situations. Also, what could be included is inadequate raw material in the manufacturing process. Maybe we have reception control or procedure that covers general, but for example, let's take some situation where supplier changed the product specification, but he did not inform us, and we are producing now product that is altered. All of our controls are not efficient, and the one on reception could not show that material is changed because we are controlling packaging or temperature or other characteristics, and on the reception we could not see the change that is made in our supplier. So we will have now a situation that could lead us to lose all of our production, and of course this is emergency situations for our business. Also, when we talk about suppliers, we will have to consider here one more thing, and that is that if we only have one supplier, what if emergency situation is not something that is affecting our organization but is affecting the organization of our supplier, and we don't have raw material to produce? So we will have to think to have more suppliers, but also to develop some procedures concerning these emergency situations. Okay, next thing that could also be included is inadequate packaging of product. So we have a obligatory to think about food contact materials, but what if we did not think of all food contact materials, and this is something that is happening after our packaging and sending to the sales, for example, and we can see that there is some changes in product, and direct food contact material is affecting that changes. Also, what we have to consider is bad information on packaging. I'm talking about labels. And that bad information can come from supplier or can come from marketing that developed that labels. This is just the examples. But when we talk about bad information on packaging, it is also something that needs to be explained in procedures, and also to think about all emergency situations that could come from the bad information on packaging. For example, what if we did not labeled all allergens on our packaging and we have a problem? This is something that needs to be considered. Also, Bad packaging is something maybe that we could not see in production, but we can see it or noticed on a shelf in a sale. So this is something also to go through when we are thinking about emergency situations, because maybe we will have some problem because of the packaging. Now, procedures that exist in organizations are covering general information on how to prevent it, and we will have some controls of supplier, we will have some entrance control, but this is just something that we need to think about and to think what kind of emergency situations can come with the packaging. Also, here we can think about what is if our supplier for packaging stops working, so we don't have enough packaging material, or if we don't have our supplier, how to deal with that, how to prevent it, or how to describe it in emergency situation. Also, what else could be included is pest infestation. Of course, we have some procedures as prerequisite programs that covers general information on how to prevent it or how to react, defining principles of hygiene rules, and we maybe have some general knowledge about it. But what is a common thing that people say in an organization is that, for example, pest infestation never happened before. So this is something that is not going to happen to us. But there is a thing that needs to be think that pest infestation could happen. Maybe, for example, we had floods in Serbia, and floods is something that is affecting pests. Pests is going to find shelter, and maybe your organization will be that shelter. So never happened before is something that is changing with that flood. Also, what needs to be here considered is management with damaged products. When we have pest infestation, we will have damaged products, so this is something that needs to be also described as an emergency situation. Maybe it is described through procedures like non-conforming product, but this is practically something also to consider. And of course, if we have a pest infestation as an emergency situation, we need to control spread of the diseases. Also something to consider in our manual. Something else is defects and damage to equipment and the infrastructure, especially if we have the disrupted cold chain. Also, when I talk about procedures, they are covering general information on how to prevent it, or how to react, or have some preventive maintenance. And also we can hear from the organization that this is something that never happened before. We are taking everyday checks and everything, but when real situation occurs, like damage of equipment, and we have a break in a cold chain, all that organization are suffering from damaged goods, and they don't have enoughly developed management with that product. So also this is something to consider about procedure for non-conforming product, but also to consider about emergency situation that could occur, and this is something that we mentioned as internal risks in organization. Also, in few last years, we are talking about one theme, and this is bioterrorism, vandalism, or food safety that could be affected with bioterrorism. And there is from some standards needs to implement procedure dealing with bioterrorism, but we need to define that as also emergency situation, to define what could happen, to define what we will do with the products, because this is now not just the non-conforming products, this is products that are affected with bioterrorism, so they have to be managed in adequate way and different way than others non-conforming products. And also we will need to define who would be involved or engaged. So bioterrorism is also one thing that could be included. Okay, so we saw some situations that could occur or occurred, and now we have to prepare for all that, because we said the preparation is one thing that could save us from emergency. And how to prepare? Okay, we have to have a good cooperation with relevant inspections and other emergency services. So we will have to develop in our procedure how to react, or who to call, or where we can find informations if emergency situations occurs. Also, we have to include a larger circle. So in our manual or emergency trainings, we can include suppliers or service partners or food bank. So a larger circle that is covered with all of our developed procedures will save us from losses that could occur from the emergency situation. Also, we need to develop procedures adapted to the characteristics of production. So we will take, when defining procedures, we will have to think about location or what could affect our location of production. We will have to think about infrastructure, information, alternative energy sources, and to include all of that in our procedures. Also important that we're going to talk more in the next few things is internal training, getting to know the procedure, simulation of possible situations, external training, awareness raising, and again, trainings. Also, we can prepare the use of social networks like Facebook, Twitter, or other social networks, so we can send to all our buyers or customers information about emergency situation and how to deal in some future period or after emergency is finished. Okay. The next thing is, of course, trainings for emergency, and we are talking about internal trainings. As you can see in data that Quality Austria showed for certified organizations for manual, we could see that there are no trainings for emergency situations that are in connection with food safety. So the main thing when we are developing internal training is to teach our employees to getting to know the procedure. So when we develop procedure, we need to share that or to teach our employees for that procedure. Also, we have to perform awareness raising. Why? Because if we are listening to the situations like it never happened before, this is something that is not very good for awareness, and if some emergency situation occurred that could affect to lose our food safety. So also we need to develop internal trainings for every work group or every workplace, so each of the employees in a food safety, let's say food safety production chain, know how to react if emergency occurs. This is something also for all trainings, but especially for emergency trainings, is to have time intervals and a refreshment of these trainings. So this is something that is also affecting awareness and something that needs to the employees to know how to react, or maybe something is changed during the years. There is a new consideration of new emergency situations, and this is something that needs to have defined in refreshment trainings or some new training during the year. Also very important, very important is simulations, or simulations for the trainings or emergency situations. In health and safety and fire drills we have a simulation, but this is something that organizations are not performing in the best way, simulations of emergency situations for products. So when we talk about simulations, there is something that we need to consider, and that is, for example, simulation, what if cold chain breaks, what we will do with the products, how will employees react, where we will send all these products, or who will be noted, or where are the information of people who we need to know. So internal trainings is very important, and this is something that needs to be developed from the organization. Of course, besides internal training that is developed internally according to the procedure, we are talking also about external training. But when I talk about external training, I'm saying that this is the trainings from organizations or specialists in emergency trainings, where we can send our employees to them, or call them in our organization to check our emergency plan or a procedure manual, and to train our people. But also what I included in the external trainings is trainings of customer. So this is very important informations that we are sending to customers, or maybe this is the trainings that we are going to perform after the emergency situation, so customer could learn how to use our products, how to store them, how to adequately prepare them, etc. Also trainings of suppliers for materials. This is something that is also need to be implemented. We talked about suppliers. We will have, for example, more suppliers for materials. We will have to train them according to some of our developed procedures, so they can follow our procedures if emergency situation occurs. So we will have, if emergency situations occur, we will just have to send them one information, and they will know what to do. So trainings of suppliers for materials is very important, but let's not forget the trainings of suppliers for services. Okay, we have a suppliers for services, and this is something also that we need to consider. For example, maybe we have external transport, for example, for our products. So we need to train all that people about emergency situations that could happen for our food safety. So we have to train all of the drivers, for example, or we want to ask that organization to train their drivers. So this is also just a note for external organization, but also supplier for services. Okay, this is all for external training. I'm sure that you can think more of trainings for suppliers or customers that can be defined in your organization. And this is practically one thing that we are implementing, and this is something that is affecting awareness about emergencies, but also awareness about food safety in our organization. Okay, after all of this, and after emergency, we will have to think about activities after the emergency, and there is the first thing is activation of human resources. For example, we had emergency like floods, and all of our employees are not coming to the job, so we now, after the flood, need to think how to activate all of that human resources. And why is this first point? Because we will need human resources to establish basic systems like hygiene, a source of electricity, water supply, mechanisms for maintaining the cold chain, and of course management of waste materials. After all disasters or emergency situations, we will have lots of waste, and we will have to define management of that waste materials. Also, when we talk about activities after the emergency, we are talking about procedures of storage and distribution. This is something to consider after emergency. We will have our procedure later defined, but what if in emergency there is destroyed our storage, or we don't have a cold chain, or our equipment is broken? So we will need to develop procedures of storage and distribution. Okay, maybe we had our distribution, now it is flooded, so we need to find external distribution. Maybe this is something that we can also provide before emergency. Also procedures of storage. Maybe our storage is destroyed, so we will have to consider maybe other factory or external organization where we can store our products. Something very important is sending the necessary notifications. It is something that is needed to say to send to the publicly, to our customers, to our suppliers, and this is something also that could be defined in manual for emergency situations, but it is also something that needs to be done after emergency. And of course, in the end, there is a checking the functionality of the system and defining further steps. So this is, after all that we have done in that activities after the emergency, we have to check the functionality of the system and defining further steps. But for these situations, we need to first implement the basic rules, the basic things for like hygiene, waste management, product storage, transport, and this is just the basic things, and then we will develop in years. So this is practically the whole story about emergency situations and importance of course, trainings in all of these activities. And this is, for example, the diagram for the manual or for the procedure for emergency situations. And in the very end, we can say that the main answer is to deal with the emergency situation before it happens. So how to deal? I think the best way is to have trainings internally or externally, internally for employees, externally for all included in chain of production, and of course to have a good manual for emergency situations. So this is practically the end, and I'm waiting for your questions, and I will be, of course, here for all the answers you have on presentation on everything. Okay, thank you all for listening, and also thank you for joining. So I'm waiting for your questions now.
Excellent. That was really nice, that, Vladimir. Enjoyed that. It did give a good overview. The poll has actually worked this week. So the question was, your emergency preparedness and response system, in other words, your manual, your system, your procedures. So 16% said we have no system at all. So 16% have no emergency preparedness and response system. A further 39% have a system but have not rolled that out to employees, and 46% have a system and have trained employees. So over half of the attendees that voted either have no system or have a system but have not trained employees. And how does that sort of fit with your research results there, Vladimir?
Well, it sets my also research, and maybe this is some percentage that I expected for that, because with all organizations that I'm going to, I can see that maybe there is a manual, but it's too general. It is not communicated to the employees, and all that things is just okay. We have a manual that's demand for some food safety standard, or this is something that auditor will just check, but this is something that is not good implemented. So I think that that's something in the future to consider and to develop more further.
Yeah. That's a good point, yeah. So basically a glossy manual that's sat on the shelf and never sees the light of day, it just gathers dust.
Yeah.
We've got absolutely tons of questions, Vladimir. I'll just try and read a few. Would an this is just one from Rosalind, would the emergency plan be based more on internal factors, e.g. within the control of the business, or more of anticipated situations? I think she's asking, should the emergency plan cover what could go wrong or what to do if things go wrong?
What to do if things go wrong. But also, if you are defining a manual for emergency situation, you will have to see what kind of emergency situations can occur in your organization. We said you have to check your location, you have to check your infrastructure, you have to check a region where you are. So maybe you will have tornado, maybe you will have earthquakes, maybe you will have floods, for example. And this is something first to start with and to check. And then when you define what kind of emergency can happen, then you will need to practically define what to do for that emergencies. So this is the manual, what to do in that emergencies. Okay.
And so, you know, in developing that, what can go wrong, is that similar to the hazard risk assessment, a multidisciplinary team? How would you go about, you know, gathering that information?
Yeah, but for example, maybe for a good assessment of emergency situations, a team could be enough. For example, team for food safety can sit and define what could happen of emergency, but also maybe they can look at governmental data for emergency that could occur and contact them. Maybe they could find good examples of emergency situations or manuals that we can find on web or internet. But I think that a good team of employees can practically good team for food safety can practically answer this question of emergency situations. It is not similar as hazard analysis, because hazard is practically when you are doing the diagram of production and you will see all the points in that production. But when you are defining emergency situations, it's something that occurs in your region or occurs earlier, or maybe you can see, as I said, data of all emergencies. So this is something that you can find on internet, and a good team of employees could define it themselves.
Okay. Another one. When obviously, as well as having the system in place, you should do simulations. You mentioned that. Should that be actually with people actually mobilized within the organization, or theoretical? What do you think about that?
Yeah, when we talk about emergencies in food safety and when we talk about simulations, I think that the best way is to involve all employees in that. To look at it as a training for health and safety hazard, or a training for fire drill, for example. Just to look at it like that, to say, okay, we have a situation, emergency, there is a break, for example, of equipment, everybody involved have to be on their positions and to perform all the activities that is defined in manual. And then we will see the effectivity of the performed activities, and to see is our manual adequate, is all the activities performed in place, or do we have to change something, to train more people in that, to involve maybe more people. And this is something that is very important to include every working level or every workplace in that.
Okay, and another question on the same theme. When you are doing these mock exercises, these simulations, obviously there are a big list of potential threats. What do you do? Do you have to test, each one? Like, if we had a fire, what would we do? If we had a terrorism threat, do you have to test against all potential threats?
You know how I see in some organizations, when they are doing all of these emergency situations, they are doing in some time period. So let's say, for example, they are doing it two times in 1 year, and they are taking different situations. For example, in first part of the year, they are taking the fire drill and what to do with the products, and in second part they are doing the drill for bioterrorism and what to do. And for example, it depends from your organization. If this is a small organization, this is something that could be performed in less. But if you're producing a lot of products, you have many customers, I think this is something that must be more often trained, and with all different emergencies.
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look if we can see any more. Yeah, I'll just go back to. Yeah, I mean, how does it link in with product recall, then? Contingency planning, product recall, business continuity planning, emergency preparedness and response. Are they all part of the same thing?
Yeah, we can say that you can show through the presentation that we have some things that I say that could be implemented in manual for emergency situations, but this is also the things that could be implemented through different procedures. For example, procedure for recall, procedure for non-conforming product, procedure for I don't know, complaints, and that, etc., etc. But I think that most specific problems with recall and something is all of these procedures are just general. So we need to develop more strict procedures in existing, or maybe to involve it in emergency situation manual. So that's it.
Okay. Somebody's asked, I think it was Dora, said, is emergency preparedness and response the same thing as business continuity in the SQF? I imagine they all come under the same umbrella, I guess. And
yeah, they all came to the same umbrella.
Yeah. Do you know? Are you familiar with various GFSI standards like BRC and IFS and?
Yes.
Yeah, and do they all cover emergency response?
I didn't hear the last one because I was reading chat here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, you know,
for IFS and BRC, do they linking also emergency situations? Yes. I saw that they are also linking emergency situations, and also that standards are the first standards who that involved also bioterrorism in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, just a question, you know, has there ever been a recorded case of, let's say, bioterrorism?
No. For example, this is the most common question from people involved in food safety. Bioterrorism is something that is that we can talk in countries like food production in America, for example, and I have to think about someone who will come into my organization and throw anthrax around. But when we talk about organizations, small productions, we are talking more about vandalism. What is that? For example, we will have unsatisfied employee, maybe because of the lower paycheck or late of paycheck and everything, and maybe because he's unsatisfied, he could put some physical hazard in our product. So this is something that could occur. Or maybe even there is a situation that we have two employees that are not functioning well, or they are in some argue, and okay, I will put something in his line of control and affecting him. But of course, this is the question of awareness. And so I think that maybe that things like vandalism is something that is that also needs to be considered, and to track all of your employees on that things, not just like bioterrorism. You have to also see what is possible to happen in your country, or what is not possible to happen. So
yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so based on your specific business, your location, the current threats, the weather, you know, all sorts of things, all sorts of variables make it specific to your organization and where you're based. And it's got to be a living thing, because those goalposts change over time, so it's got to be regularly reviewed. It would be good if there was some sort of basic checklist or something that was generic to all organizations, that could help a team, you know, lead them through a process to make sure have we got everything covered, and then add on any specific things related to their business. That would be useful.
Yeah, yeah. A good checklist. I saw in some organization that they develop checklists also for bioterrorism or vandalism, and they are performing the monitoring of all that questions once quarterly even, to check all the things. But also for some emergency situations, you can do the checklists for checking the I don't know, electricity, for checking of equipment. But this is also something that is covered with prerequisite programs. So you of course have to check that, but it also needs to be included in emergency, and to have one checklist so you can just see all of that things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's mentioned PAS 96. I'm not aware of that document. I don't know if that's a good reference. I don't know anything about that.
I don't either know all the demands of PAS 96. I read it, but
okay.
Now I can't remember all of the.
Okay.
But of course, I will look at and answer it on mail. If Rosalind can send me a mail, I will gladly answer it. I will look at it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think what we'll do now is we're approaching probably the hour mark now, and there are far too many questions. I've got ones written down. There are lots in the sidebar. I think what we'll do is I'll copy all of those and put them on the IFSQM forum, and if possible, if you could follow up with those, Vladimir, that would be great.
Okay.
because we've got to be aware that people have got a day job to do as well. So we could talk about this all day. But it's been a very interesting discussion. It's been great having you. I've really enjoyed it, Vladimir. And I know you've got some more presentations later in the year. Is that right?
Yes, of course. I have one in July. It's Friday, of course. We have traceability. We are going to talk about traceability in food production, in restaurants and fast foods. This is something very interesting because, for example, traceability is something that could be good managed in big organizations, but in fast foods and restaurants, it's a really challenging thing. So I'm going to talk about that.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to that. So on behalf of the IFSQN and Food Safety Fridays members and attendees, I really want to say thanks very much, and it's been great, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in the near future, Vladimir. So have a great weekend, mate.
Thank you all. Also, have you all a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye. Okay, ladies and gents, I did manage to get the pop-in for the certificate, so if you can, hopefully you can see that in the sidebar now, and hopefully you'll be able to download that certificate. If not, like I say, we'll send the email out a couple of days after today's webinar, and that will have the video, the presentation slides, and a copy of the certificate. So you will get everything, and if you don't, you can always email me as well. So thanks for your attendance today. Sorry about the delay. We did manage to get through it, and in the end it was well worth the wait because it was a great webinar. So thanks very much, ladies and gents. All I can say is have a lovely Friday and have a great weekend. Take care.